You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. It's July the 27th, 2023, and we're live here from the Legacy420.com news desk at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Glenn. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Al. Just great. It's still warm out. Going to be a storm today, they say. But it's still warm right now, so I'll take it.
So you're getting some of that Costa Rica weather back here at home then?
Yeah, it's been pretty warm lately. But like I said, today they're calling for a really bad storm. So I don't know. Sometimes it just blows by us. Sometimes we get it.
Well, I can tell you one has just left us and is on your way. So you're more likely. That's probably
what we're getting.
That's probably it. Yeah, exactly. Well, what do you say? We get started?
Sure. We got some good stories today.
All right, we sure do. We're going to hit it right off the bat with three back-to-back marijuana moment stories, and they're all along the same line. And let's get started with the first one. And it says, House approves veterans medical marijuana access and psychedelics research amendments as part of the spending bill.
The U.S. House of Representatives has approved amendments to a large-scale spending bill that would allow U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, doctors to recommend medical cannabis to military veterans and promote research into substances like psilocybin and MDMA. Just one day after the House Rules Committee made the measure in order for floor consideration, they passed on the floor on Wednesday and are advancing as part of appropriations legislations covering military construction, veteran affairs, and related agencies.
The medical cannabis measure, which was filed by the co-chairs of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, Rep. Brian Mast and Earl Blumauer, Dave Joyce, and Barbara Lee, passed in a voice vote. Their amendment, which was later co-sponsored by Reps. Jim McGuffey and Matt Gaetz, would specifically prohibit the use of VA funds to enforce provisions of an existing directive that bars doctors from making medical cannabis recommendations to veterans.
Veterans face a Department of Veterans Affairs that does not allow their primary care physicians, their post-deployment clinics, to discuss the medical treatment options and work with them through the paperwork for those medical treatment options that are actually available in their states, Mass said. If they are not working with their doctors to do that, then you have to ask yourself, who is it that they would be working with to do that for medical treatment?
Good question.
Yeah, Blumauer said that veterans in Oregon and across the country have shared powerful stories with me about how medical cannabis has saved their lives and given relief from wounds of war seen and unseen.
These veterans have also shared their fear about what happened if they work with the VA doctors to incorporate their cannabis use into the treatment plans. The VA denies veterans access to this care option by preventing providers from completing forms in compliance with the state medical marijuana programs. This is a shameful disservice to the men and women who put their lives on the line. The VA is forcing veterans to seek care outside of the VA or self-medicate. Our veterans are paying the price for Congress' failure to act. Sure are. Joyce also spoke in favor of the amendment, saying he's proud to join my colleagues in leading this common sense effort to help our country's veterans access medical treatment.
It only makes sense.
I know, exactly.
I've seen firsthand the many challenges our nation's heroes face when they return home, he said. We should all be resolved to help expand access to treatments for the medical challenges, both mental and physical, our nation's veterans experience. The measure passed despite Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's a Democrat from Florida, former chair of the Democratic National Committee, joining Representative John Carter, who's a Republican from Texas, in voicing opposition to it on practical grounds, arguing that it could put VA doctors in legal jeopardy if they actually fill out forms to recommend medical cannabis to veterans. This is the problem. Always is. It's Congress's problem.
Yeah, exactly. Despite their opposition, no one requested that a recorded vote be taken to challenge the measures passage via voice vote. The provisions of the amendment were advised ahead of the Rules Committee meeting on Tuesday. It previously shared the same language as an amendment that was approved by the Senate Appropriations Committee last month for that chamber's version of the spending legislation. If the House proposal hadn't been changed, that likely would have increased its chances of being adopted into law as part of the final conference report. But now that there will have to be bipartisan and bicameral discussion about which, if any, version will be enacted.
Legislation to allow VA doctors to issue medical cannabis recommendations to patients have advanced through both chambers in recent sessions. In 2016, the House and Senate both adopted different versions of the reform in their spending bills. In 2016, but neither made it into the final conference report following the negotiations. Meanwhile, the House also adopted by voice vote an amendment from Representative Lou Cora, who's a Democrat, and Jack Bergman, Republican, that would encourage research into the therapeutic potential of certain psychedelics.
If psychedelics-assisted therapy can treat a veteran's PTSD or prevent them from taking their own life, then we owe it to them to take an active role in researching these potential life-saving therapies, Bergman says on the floor. This amendment will unlock potential treatments that have been shown to actually cure PTSD, something current medicine and modern psychology have been unable to do, and give our veterans a chance to live a long, happy life that we all take for granted.
No members rose to speak against the measure. Instead, Cora used the allotted opposition time to speak in support of the proposal. Let's take care of business. Let's make sure the VA takes these studies, brings back data so that we can create a program that takes care of our veterans, the congressman said. Veterans have fought for our freedoms, and it's time we continue and step up to fulfill our moral obligation to take care of them as well, which makes great sense. But none of this makes any sense without taking it off Schedule 1.
The lawmakers are also founding co-chairs of the Congressional Psychedelics Caucus that promotes research into entheogenic substances, also promoted the measure on Monday ahead of the Rules Committee. The text of the Bergman-Cora legislation does not specifically mention psychedelics and simply simultaneously increases and decreases funding in an unrelated part of the bill. A common tactic in appropriations legislation by members who want to send a message to federal agencies about key priorities without actually altering legislative text.
In the summary of the proposal posted by the Rules Committee says it increases and decreases the medical and prosthetic research account at the Department of Veterans Affairs to ensure the VA conducts large-scale studies into the efficacy of drugs that the FDA designated breakthrough therapy status to treat post-traumatic stress disorder through VA-administered drug-assisted therapy trials. The FDA said it's a breakthrough therapy. All the people are saying it's great, and it's still Schedule 1 stuff.
It's just unreal, eh? Meanwhile, a report attached to the spending legislation by the House Appropriations Committee also includes a section noting that VA has clarified that nothing in VA statuses or regulations specifically prohibits a veteran whose income is derived from the state legalized cannabis activities from obtaining a certificate of eligibility for VA home loan benefits.
Well, I guess they could buy a house. Wednesday's vote to approve the amendments represents one of the first examples of progress on cannabis and psychedelics reform in the GOP-controlled House. There were some concerns that all modest proposals on the issue might be held up by the Rules Committee, as the panel recently blocked more than a dozen other drug policy reform amendments that were proposed as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. With respect to the current Milcon VA bill, the Rules panel did block additional amendments that would end the practice of drug testing job applicants for cannabis at certain federal agencies and separately address VA medical marijuana issues from advancing.
All right. Yes. Veterans, cannabis. I'll tell you, there's a lot of them A lot of them use cannabis. I'm going to throw a shout out right now, and that's to the Veterans Action Council.com. Check out their website. Al Byrne, he was my guest last night on the Pace Radio Show. He's a Navy veteran, was in Navy for 26 years. He's been working really hard to help with patients and veterans. So give them a shout. Check them out. VeteransActionCouncil.com. All right. Get on to the next one. I find my cursor. There we go. I just got to find for some reason it's just not lining up this one. All right. The on this one here. Oh, I got the wrong one. Too many stories that look the same, Al. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we had 3 back-to-back stories, and I happened to grab the wrong one, but now I got it. We're good. There we go. Up next in the marijuana moment, the Congressman blasts VA and Defense Department over misguided opposition to medical marijuana use by veterans with PTSD.
A Democratic congressman is slamming the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and Department of Defense, the DoD, for perpetuating a misguided denial of services by recommending against the use of medical cannabis by veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. Brilliance. Representative Earl Blumenbauer, who's a Democrat from Oregon, co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, sent a letter to VA Secretary Dennis McDough, DOT Secretary Lloyd Austin on Wednesday, the same day that he helped pass an amendment to a spending bill covering VA that to allow the department's doctors to issue medical cannabis recommendations to veterans living in legal states. And that's the story we just read.
Yeah.
VA and DoD have a long history of claiming the best interests of our veterans and service members, only to deny the reality of medical cannabis as a key treatment option for those impacted by PTSD, he wrote, referencing recently updated joint clinical practice guidelines that the department released last month.
In that guidance, the agency asserted that the benefits of cannabis were outweighed by the potential serious adverse effects, and that they found no evidence on cannabis to treat PTSD. Oh, really?
I can point them the right way.
But the congressman is pushing back. He says, for decades, I have heard from veterans across the country that medical cannabis has been a life-saving treatment for PTSD. I urge you to reconsider the adequate and insufficient recommendations against the use of cannabis or cannabis derivatives in treating patients with PTSD. Wow. Well, maybe they found no evidence because the federal government doesn't allow people to do research.
And there is lots of anecdotal evidence out there. Lots.
Yeah.
You talk to veterans, you talk to anybody, talk to 10 of them, and 8 of them will tell you a story about it. So,
yeah.
To date, 38 states have adopted medical cannabis programs in recognition of cannabis medical use in treatment for numerous conditions. Many veterans report using cannabis for medical purposes as a substitute for prescription drugs and their side effects, he said, adding that a recent survey of veterans who use cannabis found that they report improved quality of life and reduced use of certain prescription drugs, including opioids. The congressman also pointed to the fact that the President Joe Biden signed bipartisan legislation last year that he sponsored to streamline research into cannabis.
Given this significant development, it is responsible for VA and DoD to continue to deny patients access to medical marijuana as a treatment option based on the myth that this substance does not have accepted medical use, he said. As your guidance references, the failed federal prohibition on research unduly deters our nation's ability to study the health impacts of cannabis. This prohibition has not prevented states from pushing forward to establish these programs. It's unacceptable that veterans are denied this treatment option that's available to patients outside the VA system. Yeah.
Continuing to force veterans outside of VA care in order to get complete information on medical cannabis as a treatment option does a disservice to those suffering wounds, visible and hidden, from their service to our nation. It is past time for VA and DoD to become better partners in the path forward on this issue for our veterans, instead of blocking veterans from equal access to this treatment option for PTSD. VA and DoD should participate in the additional research we owe to patients and the public. I urge you to rethink the detrimental guidance against providers serving their patients to the best of their ability, where medical cannabis is authorized and regulated by their states. The letter was also sent to the secretaries on the same day that the House approved an amendment to appropriations legislation, co-sponsored by Blumhauer and his bipartisan cannabis caucus co-chairs, that would prevent the enforcement of VA policies barring its doctors from filling out paperwork to recommend medical cannabis to veterans.
The House also passed another amendment on Wednesday that meant to encourage research into the therapeutic potential of psychedelics like psilocybin and MDMA. So, like, why are they not, pushing for research on the cannabis end?
Yeah, there is some, but I still find it funny that they're both listed as no medical benefits, nothing.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that's BS. All the congressmen know that's BS.
Well, let's find out what the American Medical Association says in this third story in a row from the Marijuana Moment. American Medical Association promotes psychedelics research, opposes Kratom criminalization, and affirms support for marijuana drug testing.
The American Medical Association has adopted a series of new drug policy positions, including advocating for psychedelics research, opposing the criminalization of Kratom, and calling for an end Kratom, and calling for an end to the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine, and supporting the continued inclusion of cannabis metabolites in employment-based drug tests. The organization House of Delegates, which met last month to consider numerous resolutions, also declined to approve an additional measure to revise its stance on cannabis in a way that would have maintained its opposition to legalization while implicitly recognizing the benefits of regulating cannabis products, instead opting to continue its advocacy for prohibition without the newly proposed regulatory language.
There you go. AMA, they had a chance to change it. They're seeing all this stuff going on, and they just turn their faces and ignore the research.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand the leadership of that.
Yeah, and this comes about a year after the AMA delegates voted to amend its policy position to support the expungement of past cannabis convictions in states that have legalized the plant. At the most recent meeting, the body tackled several different areas of drug policy.
What does the AMA have to do with the expungement of cannabis convictions?
I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with that.
They just said they supported it, but they support leaving it as cannabis is a plant that's it's got no medical value.
But they don't want you to get convicted. This is, I don't know. It's opposed visions here in the same place. The American Kratom Association cheered the adoption of a new resolution that says people who are using Kratom only for personal use should not face criminal consequences. Though the measure also says that the substance should be evaluated by the relevant regulatory entities for its appropriateness for sale and potential oversight via the Controlled Substances Act before it can be marketed, purchased, or prescribed. Now, I'm ignorant. What is Kratom?
Well, Kratom is a psychedelic drug.
Is it a man-made drug? Is that what it is?
No, I don't know the whole thing around it myself.
Okay.
But here, they're talking about appropriationists for sale, potential oversight, getting it marketed and purchased and prescribed.
Yeah.
What happened to cannabis?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always dumbfounded when we read these stories.
Yeah, it further says that Kratom should be regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, and its safety and efficacy should be determined through clinical trials before it can be marketed or prescribed as a treatment for any condition.
While advocates want consumers to be able to continue to purchase Kratom from retailers, AKA sees the resolution's adoption as a step in the right direction. departing from a more aggressive criminalization stance. With respect to psychedelics, AMA's delegates voted in favor of a separate measure to advocate for continued research and therapeutic discovery into psychedelics and tactogenetic agents with the same scientific integrity and regulatory standards applied to other promising therapies in medicine.
Wow. Yeah, where's the vote for continuing medical research on cannabis? Oh. The resolution, however, also advocates against the use of any psychedelic or entacogenic compounds such as psilocybin or MDMA to treat any psychiatric disorder except those which have received FDA approval or those prescribed in context of approved investigational studies. AMA immediate past President Jack Resnick Jr. said in a press release that the organization believes that scientifically valid and well-controlled clinical trials are necessary to assess the safety and effectiveness of all new drugs, including potential use of psychedelics for the treatment of psychiatric disorders.
The AMA appreciates that lawmakers want to help address the mental health crisis in the U.S., but there are other straightforward approaches that don't thwart drug safety assessment and regulation, such as increasing coverage and removing barriers to care for evidence-based treatments, he said. The delegates also adopted an additional resolution that voices support for continuing to include cannabis metabolite analysis in relevant drug testing analysis performed for occupational and municipal purposes. And I think that is one of the biggest invasions of privacy there is. What the hell is the difference what you do on the weekend?
Exactly.
If you're smoking it while you're doing something dangerous at work, that's a whole different ballgame. But if you're consuming it at home, it's none of their business.
No. The stance, which comes as numerous institutions remove cannabis testing requirements amid the state level legalization movement, specifics that AMA supports continuing cannabinoid screening in pre-employment, post-accident, random, and for use testing. Members also have the chance to add to a series of other existing cannabis positions with a new resolution that opposes legalization until research proves its medical efficacy and calls for warning levels and advertising restrictions. But the delegates instead decided to reaffirm the group's existing platform that still maintains an opposition to legalization, describes cannabis as a dangerous drug, and supports social equity in states that have enacted the reform. A dangerous drug, cannabis.
Yeah.
This is the AMA, all right?
I know, absolute stupidity. The proposed change could have added language that tactically recognizes the potential opportunities of legalization and regulating cannabis. That our AMA Council on Legislation draft state model legislation for states that have legalized medical or recreational cannabis. 1, prohibit dispensaries from selling cannabis products if they make any misleading health information and or therapeutic claims. 2, to require dispensaries to include a hazardous warning on all cannabis product labels similar to tobacco and alcohol warnings. And 3, ban the advertising of cannabis dispensaries and cannabis products in places that children frequent.
While opposing legalization, the resolution seems to recognize that, unlike in the illicit market, states that allow and regulate cannabis sales present the opportunity to enact labeling and advertising rules for the measure was ultimately not approved. Delegates did adopt a separate measure that expresses support for eliminating the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine and providing retroactive sentencing for those who've been impacted.
Again, what has that got to do with the American Medical Association?
Yeah.
The disparity has no basis in science, AMA trustee Ilse Levin said. There is no significant pharmacological difference between the drugs. Not only do we need to stop the disparity, but we also need to go back and ensure justice for those who were convicted under those unjust laws.
Yeah, I wonder what did they, like they said they eliminated disparity between them, but I wonder, did they go to a stronger? Did one of those go to a stronger situation where they're more apt to, spend time in jail, or something along that line.
I think the sentencing for crack is a lot more than it is for cocaine, and it's essentially the same substance. It's exactly the same substance. So I think that's what they're saying. But I still, what does the AMA have to do with sentencing?
Nothing.
It baffles me, right?
Yeah.
This is not the Department of Justice talking here. This is the AMA.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrific.
All right. Under our next story. This one from MJ Biz Daily. Canadian adult use cannabis sales edge up to $415 million in May.
Canada's regulated recreational cannabis retailers sold 415.6 million Canadian dollars, which is a 315 million American worth of cannabis in May, 1.2% increase over April, with the province of Quebec posting the largest monthly gain. Might have something to do with they can't grow anything there. Adjusting for the additional day in May, however, cannabis sales declined by roughly 2.1% between April and May.
May recreational cannabis sales increased by 11.2% over the same months last year, according to the Federal Data Bureau, Statistics Canada. April's recreational cannabis sales total was adjusted, however, to $410 million. The province of Quebec reported the largest month-over-month increase in retail sales of legal recreational cannabis, growing 7.9% from April to May to $52.5 million.
Wow. Monthly sales totals and month-over-month changes in the remaining provinces and the territory of Yukon were as follows. Ontario, 162.5 million, up 1.5%. Alberta, 74 million. British Columbia, 64 million. Saskatchewan, 19 million. Manitoba, 16 million. Nova Scotia, 9 million. New Brunswick, 7 million. Newfoundland, 6 million. Prince Edward Island, 1 million. And the Yukon, $996,000.
Look at the PEI number, down 36%.
I wonder why. I don't understand that. Everybody else is up.
Yeah. Recreational cannabis sales totaled $2 billion between January and May, according to the data. There you go.
$2 billion.
That was a big drop. 36%. Wow.
I don't understand that one. I wish they would explain it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know why. All right, here goes our last story before we go to break. Question that was sort of going on here in Canada. What happens to Minnesota's medical cannabis program when marijuana becomes legal for recreational use? And I wouldn't doubt a lot of patients were asking the same thing here in Canada. And we're seeing what's happening there.
Yeah.
5.2.
One week from Tuesday, recreational cannabis for Minnesotans 21 and older will be legal. But for years, patients enrolled in the medical cannabis program have had access, and that will continue under the new law. A 300-page bill that authorizes cannabis use for adults made some changes, though, to the program, while eliminating the $200 annual enrollment fee and allowing patients certification by a doctor through a telehealth appointment. A $200 annual enrollment fee to get your medicine. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Wow.
Yeah, I know, really, eh? Their patients, they got all kinds of money. Patients got, it's just flowing out of their pockets.
Wow.
State data shows that nearly yeah, exactly. They say that there's nearly 40,000 registered patients, and that has mostly increased since the first year in 2015. But will that decrease with full legalization? Chris Thokes, he's the director of the Office of Medical Cannabis at the Minnesota Department of Health, thinks so, and I agree with him.
She sits on a panel of national cannabis regulators and said that in other states that started with medical programs, when they added adult use markets, have typically seen about 30 to 40% decrease in patients on the medical side. That largely depends on what barriers have been removed from the medical programs, she added, and noted Minnesota moves this legislative sessions to further eliminate hurdles.
Well, I can tell you here in Canada, our federal government, their survey says that close to 50% of the people who use our recreational stores are actually doing so for medical purposes, and
I believe that. I think it's
that's
probably
going
even
to
higher
reduce
than that.
that would reduce numbers. So
It reduces stress. So people use it for stress reduction, and that's
mhm.
medical.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, what else would you use facial scrub for? Like, do you sit around and have a party with facial scrub on your face? I don't know.
No,
Wow.
I've never
All
done
right.
that.
Let's see here. They say that these numbers largely depend on what barriers have been removed from the medical program, and noted Minnesota's moves this legislative session to further eliminate hurdles.
Uh, I do think it will be sustainable, Talk said in an interview with WCCO. We'll likely see a reduction in the number of patients, but I do think that there will be enough demand for folks who are interested in maintaining that relationship with pharmacists, as well as, just access certain products. Tolk said that the medical cannabis will likely be cheaper than products one day available for purchase at retail dispensaries. It will take at least a year for them to be operational under the new regulations.
Adult use cannabis will face state and local sales tax plus a gross receipt tax of 10%. Cannabis is yeah. Cannabis is treatment for qualified conditions like chronic pain, cancer, and post-traumatic stress disorder is tax-free. Nice. Not here in Canada.
Wow. Uh, the I love how they added 10% on it.
Yeah.
And this is going to go on until these companies are massive. They're as big as the beer companies, and then they can fight these, and that'll all be eliminated, and they'll never pay taxes again.
Yeah.
The normal marketplace supply and demand will definitely be in play here. As we see more production, the cost should start to come down. She said the two markets existing at once. Joan Barron, a medical patient from Ramsey, said medical cannabis changed her life, but noted access to many Minnesotans, it has been cost prohibitive. She pays $200 per month, and up until now, a $200 annual fee to get what she needs for her rare condition.
Eliminating that yearly cost to the state is huge, she said, and she praised the changes made by the legislator this year to lower barriers to entry. No fee began July the 1st. Starting in 2025, patients will need to be recertified every 3 years by a physician, not every year. Which is great. That's much better than what we got. We go once a year, and somebody with a terminal or a long time condition like myself, my Crohn's isn't going to go away, but
No.
we gotta renew it every year.
Yeah. I haven't renewed mine at all.
So there you go.
So,
Yeah.
I use it medically, but I don't have a medical license anymore, or
Yeah.
whatever you call it. Unless my old one still counts,
No.
because I have the big long paper one, right?
Yeah, no. It doesn't matter how long the paper is. If you haven't had one signed in the last year, you're without a license.
Yeah, I'm without one.
Yeah.
Starting in 2025, patients will need to be researched. Oh, you said that. I'm glad that the med program is getting fixed in a way that it should have been fixed to begin with, Barron said. She intends to remain enrolled, but will also purchase recreational cannabis and may try home growing, which is legal starting next week for up to 8 plants at a single residence. 8 plants.
Yeah. We'll have a lot of different options, and I'm grateful now that Minnesota is fully legalized. People can use alternative medications to prescription drugs. Other changes to the medical program under the new law include allowing patients in programs in other states to buy products in Minnesota under a visiting patient option beginning
Wow.
in 2 years, and the age threshold for registered caregivers to purchase cannabis flower is lowered from 21 to 18. So it's good to see that they're going to recognize out of state as well.
Yeah, visiting patient option. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Glenn, it's that time. It's time to hear from our sponsors and for us to take a break. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. And I got windows popping up right in front of my button.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
PACE Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. You're listening to the PACE Radio Network, here at paceradio.net. Well, Glenn, we're back, we're live, and we're ready to bring our listeners more stories. What do you say? We get at her?
Yeah, I love this title of this story here. It's going to be interesting.
This next story, here we go. Trial finds psilocybin to be a promising treatment for anorexia.
A new phase 1 clinical trial has found that a single dose of psilocybin combined with psychotherapy may be promising treatment for anorexia nervosa, a mental illness that is notoriously difficult to treat and for which there are currently no approved medications. The mental health benefits of psilocybin, the main psychoactive ingredient in magic mushrooms, continues to be explored in clinical trials. There have already been trials testing psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy as a treatment for depression and anxiety, and now a new clinical trial has examined whether the drug is effective at treating anorexia nervosa.
Normally developing during adolescence, anorexia nervosa, which is they're saying AN, is characterized by excessive and undue preoccupation, fear and distress around food, weight, body shape, and eating. It can lead to starvation, malnutrition, severe mental stress, and suicidal thoughts. Affecting AN can be difficult to treat and has one of the highest mortality rates of any psychiatric illness. There are no currently approved medications to treat the condition.
So researchers from UC San Diego and the University of Michigan Medical School embarked on a phase 1 clinical trial to assess the safety, tolerability, and efficacy of a single dose of synthetic psilocybin administered alongside psychological support to 10 females aged 18 to 40 with anorexia. I tend to almost discount the study when they say they use synthetic psilocybin.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to hear what you wanted to say there.
Yeah.
Psilocybin is thought to act on serotonin receptors, the body's natural mood stabilizer, controlling happiness and well-being. Studies have shown that people with AN have altered brain serotonin function, suggesting that the condition may respond positively to treatment with psilocybin. In addition, the openness and self-acceptance that usually accompanies psilocybin treatment may shift existing thoughts around body image and food and lead to new attitudes.
After being given a single dose of 25 milligrams of psilocybin and engaging in psychotherapy, trial participants were assessed for 3 months. To evaluate the safety of the treatment, the researchers monitored participants' vital signs, ECGs, which would be electrocardiograms, laboratory tests, and suicidal thoughts. They also assessed changes in the participants' self-reported body weight, shape, and eating concerns using the eating order examination questionnaire. The researchers found that all women tolerated the psilocybin. No serious adverse effects were observed besides mild and transient headaches, nausea, and fatigue. There was no increase in suicidal thoughts among the participants.
How do they even know that this synthetic psilocybin is anything like the real thing? I don't understand.
Yeah, the chemical configurations, same way they do with cannabis.
The pretend cannabis is nothing like the real cannabis, in my experience. I tried, and when it first came out, my cousin had a prescription for fake cannabis, and it was absolute terrible garbage, not worth anything. And I don't understand, like, how do they know that this is the same as psilocybin?
Well, they're doing the research to find out.
Well, you'd actually have to take psilocybin and then take this fake thing right away to find out, if there was any different. I don't know. Most participants reported positive changes 3 months after receiving the psilocybin, including significantly reduced weight concerns after 3 months. Shape concerns decreased significantly at 1 month follow-ups, but were no longer significant at 3 months. While the effects of psilocybin were highly variable, 4 participants, which is 40% of the sample, demonstrated substantial decreases in EDE scores after 3 months, qualifying for remission from an eating disorder. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, the participants regarded the psilocybin experience as meaningful, with 90% saying they felt more positive about the life endeavors, and 70% reported an overall shift in personal identity and quality of life. Notably, 90% of the participants considered that a single psilocybin dosing session was not enough.
Wow.
Yeah, so there you go. There's some results.
Yeah.
I know you're upset that it's synthetic, but it did get some positive results, right?
They did get positive results, and I wonder if the results would have been even better if it was natural.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wish they would have 2 studies side by side, and then we could find out.
Yeah. Well, I see we're getting we're only partway through the story, and we've only got about 15 minutes left, and we still got 3 more stories to cover. But this has got some good results in it.
Yep. 90% considered it was not enough. That was a good one too. 90% of them said it wasn't enough. They wanted another dose.
Yeah, just for anybody who wants to read that whole study, it is posted on the Psychedelics and Cannabis educational Facebook page. It is there for you to take a look at and read the whole thing. All right, here we go. On to the next story. This one comes to us from Canna Reporter, who comes to us from. I had to take a double look at that one. Come on. There we go. Luxembourg new cannabis law came into force yesterday.
On July 17th, 2023, the law of July 10th, 2023 was published in the official journal, amending the law of February 1973, as amended on the sale of medicinal substances and the fight against drug addiction, which provides for the legalization of the domestic cultivation of cannabis under certain conditions. The law will enter into force on the 4th day following its publication. That is on Friday, July 21st, 23. This innovative measure comes about a month after the Luxembourg Parliament approved the legalization project, becoming the second country in the European Union to end cannabis prohibition. Malta had already led the way by voting to legalize cannabis in 2021.
The legalizing of cannabis in Luxembourg was initially proposed in 2021 by the Ministers of Justice and Internal Security. The new law will allow adults to possess up to 3 grams of cannabis and grow up to 4 plants in a secure location within their private residence. Yeah, you got 2 joints.
That must be wrong, 3 grams.
It's 3 grams, man. Future legislation allows for the possession and cultivation of cannabis within certain limits. It also imposes sanctions on those who exceed permitted amounts. Possession and purchase of more than 3 grams of cannabis can carry a prison sentence of up to 6 months. The severe penalty may come as a surprise, especially since the relatively low possession limit. Furthermore, public consumption of cannabis will continue to be strictly prohibited. 3 grams, yeah, I agree, man. It's not a lot, but I know 2 people have been busted with basically that amount, like because they had a few joints in their pocket.
I got busted with a half a joint when I was really young.
Yeah,
really young. Yeah, I guess it was because I was smoking it when the cop went around the corner and he saw me, right?
Yeah.
And it was really, really bad back then. You know, it was you would be a heroin addict the next week if you tried it.
Yeah, exactly.
The decision to legalize cannabis in Luxembourg reflects a change in perspective on drug policy. Justice Minister Sam Tennyson, at the end of last month's debate, stressed that the criminalization of cannabis was an absolute failure. Therefore, the government is now daring to follow a different path and looking for alternative solutions to solve the problem. Well, with the implementation of this new law, Luxembourg is making great strides in reforming its approach to cannabis. By legalizing personal possession and cultivation for adults, the country is taking a progressive stance on drug policy. As Friday approaches, Luxembourg is ready to set an example for other nations by showing that thoughtful and compassionate drug laws can create a positive impact on society. I have a question. Sure. If you can grow a plant, but you can only possess 3 grams, how does that work?
I'm going to believe that that's 3 grams in public.
So you can grow your plant, but you have to make sure to weigh your 3 grams as you go out the door.
Correct. Yeah, wow. Just like you'd have to weigh your cannabis to make sure that you're not going over 30 grams if you think you're close.
Yeah, I just get what I get. I never even think of it anymore. I don't.
I know what you mean. It's not very often I ever worry about it. But yeah. Now we're gonna get on to the next story here that's got you all fired up this morning. And this one says from Reuters, Mastercard moves to ban cannabis purchases on its debit cards.
Mastercard has told financial institutions to stop allowing cannabis transactions on its debit cards, dealing a blow to an industry already on the fringes of the financial system in the United States. Most banks in the country do not service cannabis companies as cannabis remains illegal at the federal level, despite several states legalizing its medicinal and recreational use.
Exactly. Now, a spokesperson for the company said on Wednesday, as we were made aware of this matter, we quickly investigated it. In accordance with our policies, we instructed the financial institutions that offer payment services to cannabis merchants and connects them to Mastercard to terminate that activity. The federal government considers cannabis sales illegal, so these purchases are not allowed on our system, according to the spokesperson.
Sunburn Cannabis CEO Brady Cobb said in a statement that this move is another blow to the state legal cannabis industry and patients consumers who want access to the budding category. Pot firm Verano's president, Darren Weiss, said, "We will continue to advocate for cannabis reform in Washington, though further dialogue with elected officials and stakeholders to advance conversations supporting the growth of safe, legal cannabis across the U.S.
Pass the Banking Act.
Yeah.
Earlier this month, Republican Senator John Cornyn said Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's plan to pass marijuana banking bill was wishful thinking. Well, you got the Safe Banking Act is a crucial legislation that would make it easier for the cannabis industry to access banking services. So, like, why are the Republicans holding it up? Like, he just says wishful thinking.
A lot of these that we've read today are joint submissions or joint laws with Republicans and Democrats. But it seems at the federal level, the Republican Party just holds everything. They won't allow any movement on it, and I don't understand it.
And like, it's not only just affecting the U.S., it's affecting Canada as well.
It is. For sure. And
countries.
the banking things in Canada are really nasty here. I don't like that a lot of the cannabis retailers in my province don't have access.
Yeah, that's here. I know businesses have had to who have gone through that trial and error and found out. So, all right, on to our last story of the day. See if we can get it all in. Headline is on it from MJ Biz Daily says marijuana manufacturer uses homegrown inputs to create a one-of-a-kind edibles.
Turkish Delight, the sweet, chewy powder confection, has captured Nathan Kozolino's imagination since he was young. I thought there was a dreamy quality about it from my childhood reading. Kozolino, the owner-operator of Rose Los Angeles and maker of marijuana edibles brand Rose Delights, said the candy that appears in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. As an adult, Kozolino made buying Turkish Delights from a neighborhood candy store in an after-school ritual he shared with his son.
Oh, there's that fear. I can just feel the fear. If it's something that he liked when he was a kid, and mixing cannabis in, I can just hear that concern. As an infused cannabis product, Turkish Delights can be as practical as they are magical, he says. The formulation gives infinite possibilities in terms of the types of ingredients that you can use. You can throw anything in it and make it make sense and make it taste good, said Kozolino, who started the California-based cannabis company back in 2017.
Rose Delights, the brand's marquee product, are cannabis-infused Turkish Delights. Rose Los Angeles also sells packaged flour, infused chocolates, and capsules. It gives you an opportunity to create a more self-stable, gummy type of product without having to introduce all sorts of weird synthetic or artificial ingredients, Kozolino said.
Kozolino's culinary team and occasional guest chefs have created an exotic selection of homegrown flavors infused with single-strain rosin from flower grown at Rose's farm in California.
The farm also grows many of the fruits and vegetables that grow into the Delights. Ingredients not grown on the farm are sourced from local farmers and specialty producers. Flavors of Rose Delights include apple, ginger, ume, a Japanese fruit similar to plum, infused with Sunshine No. 4 rosin, pear kimchi infused with Maltese orange rosin, and in a nod to the traditional Turkish Delight, 2 types of rose hibiscus, one infused with fruit gushers, an indica strain, and the other with super lemon mac, a sativa. The whole intention behind Rose Delights was to create an edible product that took responsibility for and cultivated the majority of its inputs.
Uh-oh. You still there? Oh, okay. I thought there were still a few more words to go. They say the process begins at Rose's farm, a property in Central California that includes a 10,000 square foot cannabis garden. They use only a fraction of the garden and grow roughly 300 plants, which yields about 500 pounds of dried cannabis.
Of that, 100 pounds is selected for manufacturing rosin, which will go into Turkish Delights or chocolates, and the rest is sold as packaged flour. Rose maxed out its grow space. It could invest more than 1,000 pounds of flour and produce 30,000 packages of Rose Delights per month, Colizano said, adding, "We just focus on the genetics that are inspiring." Colizano Cozzolino, I'm having a problem with that guy's name. Cozzolino noted that Rose uses the same grades of flower for rosin pressing that it sells as packaged bud. Well, that's good.
That's good. That's good. Well, just so you know, we're running out of time, but we got most of that story in. But check out that stuff. Turkish Delight.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
I don't know if I've ever heard of it or even seen it.
No, and the flavors sound great.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Glenn. Just to wrap things up, anything you got going on? You going for a bike ride this weekend?
Most definitely. As long as the rain holds off, I'm going out. I have to go out. It's one of those addicting things, you know.
Yes, yeah. I know.
A good addiction.
Yes, a good addiction. I know what you mean. I've got my motorcycle license, mind you. I haven't ridden one since I've been 6, so it's been over 20 years. But
I hadn't had a bike since I was, I'm going to say 21 or 22.
Oh.
And I got this bike a year and a half ago.
Right.
And absolutely love it. And I wish I would have rode all those years.
Yeah, and your first ride on it was to drive it home from Ontario all the way in.
Yeah, I drove it 20 minutes and then I drove it 1,400 kilometers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That's from the Legacy420.com news. That's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. Thank you to Legacy420.com, Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and to you, our viewers. Catch our next broadcast Monday at 10 a.m. And don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.